This is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. And today's Tuesday, the 11th of March. Time flies. 9:39 in the morning. Uh, our weather is pretty interesting. 64 today, and it's going to hit 75, which is pretty much summer, I would think. Um, Now we're going to be 80 tomorrow, when that's summer, then 83, then 85, 86, 87, 86, then 81, 75, no rain in sight. So I'd say we're, today or tomorrow, we're in summer, depending how you want to look at it. You know, it gets cold at night, so it's like very late spring, early summer. I don't know how to differentiate it. The Bible doesn't give us a temperature reading for the seasons, you know. Okay, we're going to cover what's going on in Syria today. It's big. Christians are being removed out of their villages in Syria. Whole villages, towns, villages are being evacuated. The Christians are told to leave, and their cars are being looted by the um, HTS type people, the terrorists, the jihadists in Syria, and they're looting their houses, taking their houses, and they've been shooting at them. Not as much as the Alawites, but they have killed some. They're also using crosses. Now, I haven't gotten this completely verified. There's a picture, I put it up on my Telegram, of a cross, and I think it was just somebody made it. But it's being rumored without any heavy confirmation at all that they're putting Christians on crosses. I do not know if this is true. Have they shot them? Yes. How many? We don't know. The Christians in Syria are not aware. Okay. A lot of them, or some of them, wound up on that Russian Navy base in Latakia. Apparently, Russia troops are still occupying that base, but from what I could recall reasonably accurately, they removed their military equipment and aircraft and boats and things like that from the base, but they're still occupying the base. So they let the persecuted Alawites, which is a small sect of Islam, Muslim, uh, onto the base for protection, as well as Christians. There's also the unification of, I think it's SDF, Syrian Defense Forces, backed by America, aligned themselves with HTS, and they're getting a piece of land to live in. And the rumors, which I I would have to say that's a good guess, but it's just a guess. The rumors are that they did this to stop Turkey from fighting against them, which Erdogan has been doing inside Syria for quite many months. HTS was basically propped up, back, supported by Turkey. So they're a creation of Turkey, HTS running Syria. Okay? Um, and now HTS is going on a bloody rampage, and it hasn't stopped. And I'm going to get into the details with you, give you some numbers as best I can, as I was able to find them on the internet, and which doesn't mean they're 100% true, but I'll go through the numbers that I picked up with you. Basically, 10% of Syria is Alawite, okay? And that means 2.4 million Alawites, okay? And the Alawites were what Bashar Assad was, and there's a lot of bad blood between HTS and them. a Telegram channel popped up. I did not read it because I'm sure it was in Arabic. I didn't want to go through painstaking translations. The amount of the posts put together is probably 10 or 12 feet or more. People were reporting friends and relatives that got killed in Syria, and the guy who runs the channel edited it up and came up with over 10,000 dead. Alawites, not Christians, Alawites. Now, take it for what it's worth. We don't know how real it is, but it could be real. It likely could be. Okay. And we're going to get into all of this, what churchianity is doing about it and everything else. Okay. What's Trump's doing? What's Turkey doing? What's the UN doing? It's a big embarrassment to all these people that were backing and being friendly to Giuliani, the head of HTS. Okay, so, and the Muslim pro-terrorist media is absolutely silent about this, or 95% silent, or whatever. It's almost all not being spoken of by them. I don't understand. I can kind of speculate why. Basically, Israel's supposed to be the genocidal maniacs, not the Muslims. So it lends credence to Israel's, statements that October 7th was basically a genocide massacre of civilians, children, women, innocents, elderly, and so forth. So they don't like it. And this thing is blown up in the face of the nations that were backing this HTS guy, including the UN, the head of the UN, who there's a picture floating around where he was shaking hands with this guy. So it goes back to what I said, that HTS is ISIS, Al Qaeda with a new paint job, but inside the engine is the same Al Qaeda, ISIS engine. All right. Let me go into the live stream and make sure we got a live stream, put my posts up, and then we'll get going into this, okay? It's pretty serious because what they're doing to the Christians is going on throughout a lot of Syria. So it's not a little minor thing, Okay, posts going up. And it gives people a chance to come in. I can't talk a lot while I'm putting the posts up. I just get typos when I try that. I'm going to get my email address up if any of you want to send in. Okay. I'm going to do some praise and we'll get started. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. Get my notes and we'll go through everything. I want to point out there's a large Jew Israel hating site out there that is refusing to mention anything about these Muslims killing other Muslims in Syria, the Alawites. They're Sunni terrorist-oriented people that are killing the Alawites, which is a small type of Islam, I guess you could say. The wildfires in America in 2025, which is maybe not even 10 weeks old, is double the 10-year average. I will kindle fires in and about your city. Okay, that's worthy of note, right? Prayer requests. MC Mike Charlie. MC Mike Charlie. Healing and to focus more on the Word and the Holy Spirit. Mike Charlie MC, pray for healing and to focus more on the Word and the Holy Spirit. ES Echo Sierra, ES Echo Sierra, strength and will to walk with the Lord better. For ES, strength and will to walk with the Lord better. EL and EV, we've been praying for these people before. Echo Lima and Echo Victor, EL and EV, pray for their funds to be returned. That's something, some entity owes them money, that they would get their money back quickly and they have a better lifestyle. And the Lord shows them what, if it's anything, that something maybe they're not doing or something they should be doing. So you have, commission and omission, okay? They could both be sins, okay? So the Lord would show EL and EV if there's anything they need to be doing that they're not doing, or if they're doing something they should not be doing. This is usually what I go to when we've been praying for several times and we're not getting, the right answer or a good fulfillment of the prayer or whatever. I go to this because that can frequently be helpful. So there's 2.4 million Alawites in Syria, and some people are saying they killed 1,000, others are now saying it's over 10,000. I don't know the right answer, but it's a lot. And what happens if they continue to get all the Alawites? 2.4 million. Last night in Syria, the last count I heard from Israel media was 9 targets in Syria were hit last night. But The HTS government in Syria says it was 20. We hit at least one building that HTS was using for their operations in Syria. I assume military or security forces or both. And we hit weapons, we hit tanks. They did have some tanks. Some days ago, maybe less than a week or a week, they approached our buffer zone with tanks and we told them to get out of there. So now we're blowing up whatever tanks we could find of theirs. We don't want them to have tanks, but this is the kicker. What we did do, we blew up multiple radars in Syria that were left behind by Bashar Assad. Now, what do radars tell you? Well, I don't think Syria has good enough radar to detect ground forces approaching. I could be wrong. I don't think so. I think they're going up in the air for that. And they're trying to track aircraft, missiles, drones. Now, do they have any anti-aircraft missile defense systems? I don't know. They might have grabbed a couple from Bashar Assad. This is a possibility that we didn't get all of them. And by taking out the radars, it makes the air defense systems that they may or may not have, or how many they have, we don't know, pretty useless because they can't get a lock on a target, and they're not going to get anything referred to as early warning that planes or helicopters are approaching. So that means that Israel wants to make sure they can continue conducting airstrikes in Syria as needed. This means Israel has intentions to do more things in Syria. It's pretty logical. The SDF forces of the Kurds in northeast Syria made a deal with HTS to join their government, and they would have a sovereign piece of land, a province or a state or whatever they call it up there in northeastern Syria for themselves. And these were American backed, and now they put themselves up with HTS, which is an embarrassment for America because of what HTS is doing. Now, when you go to the mainstream media, what you can pick up is this. HTS is saying it's various militia groups in Syria that are persecuting the Christians and the Alawites. Okay? There's been almost, close to public display of statements that Giuliani, I think that's his name, the head of HTS, made. And he told the people that were doing the atrocities on the Alawites not to film it because they were filming making the Alawites crawl on all fours and bark as like dogs while they were sometimes riding on them, and then after that they shot them dead. And I put on my Telegram pictures of the bodies being stacked up in the street and everything else. So he said not to be filming them because this could get used against us in public relations. Apparently that's what he meant, obviously. And he also said that they should kill them immediately. They're going into houses, killing them in the houses, dragging them outside, killing them. Then they're taking their cars, possessions out of the houses, occupying the houses, and so forth. That's plundering, looting, pillaging, stealing, and everything else. They're also taking younger Alawite girls and have them held up someplace in a building or buildings, plural, using them as hostages against who, I don't know. I don't know, but that's what we're being told. Is it possible they were put in a building and killed in the building? Yeah, it's possible, but we have no information leading us to that. So it appears they're holding them for some reason. And hostage story could be true. I don't quite understand how they would use it. So the head of HDS is complicit with this, according to those posts he made. And the media is also starting to play stories that the Alawites attacked the HTS security forces, which is true. And they killed about 20 of them. And that's also true. They may have killed more. That's true too. But did the Christians attack the HTS security forces and military? Absolutely not. Are the Christians armed? Absolutely not. Are the Alawites armed? Well, some of them are. Remember, the Druze were afraid that the HTS was going to persecute them. And they asked Israel to save them, and Israel did in that buffer zone in southwestern Syria by our border, which goes in not quite 40 miles, but it goes into near Damascus, not 60 yards away, a few kilometers away, 3, 4, 5, something like that, kilometers. The kilometer is 0.6 of a mile, so if it was 4 kilometers, it would be 2.4 miles. That's pretty close. Israel is dug in, military structures have been built, we have armor, tanks, probably mobile artillery, armored vehicles, troops, and we could get air support for them. And I'd say on the outside, it might take 3 minutes or something like that for the pilots to get the alert, jump in the planes, which are waiting, fueled up, loaded with weapons, fire them up and take off and fly over there. The flight time would be seconds or possibly. Uh, so it's, they got pretty darn good air cover. Okay. We also could send Apache attack helicopters, but they've got mobile artillery, I believe, and I know they have tanks, which has an artillery piece. So they can definitely put up a big fight for, 1, 2, or 3. If we got planes in the air, they'd be over there in seconds. And we normally have planes in the air most of the time, not all the time. If we're expecting trouble and there's suspicious troop movements, we have planes circling around Israel. And without breaking the sound barrier, they could hit 700 miles an hour, and that would get them over there in, I'd say, depending where the planes are, in maximum a minute. So the troops we have there are rather well protected. I don't know all the military equipment they have, but they could sustain till help came in the air. I'm rather certain. Okay. See, the problem with SDF is being hunted and attacked by the Erdogan army and his militias and stuff like that inside Syria, because he has a lot of Kurds in Syria that don't like his regime, would like to overthrow him. And if they get hooked up with the Kurds in Syria, he has a problem, because then they could attack from outside the borders and from within the country. Not good for Erdogan. So he built himself a buffer zone in Syria of about 15 miles going anywhere his border is with Syria. And he's continuing to go after the Kurds in Syria, but now the Kurds are part of HTS, and Erdogan supported and backed and propped up HTS to take over Syria. So if he turns on the Kurds, he's turning on HTS. So the interplay here is pretty fascinating. What does Erdogan do next? his best move, which would pretty well line up with Bible prophecy, because he's in the Psalm 83, which appears to be the Zechariah 12 siege, although I can't say it's 100%, but it also matches the Genesis 15 land grant. So uh, his move now would be to initially tell HTS to cool it. I don't know if that'll work or not. His next move is, see, HTS stabbed him in the back. So his next move would be to mobilize his army and air force and even his navy and enter deeper into Syria and bust up HTS and declare himself the temporary caliph or dictator or whatever, or ruler of Syria until elections could be held. Read between the lines until he could rig elections or something like that. This would pit him against Israel because he doesn't want Israel having a buffer zone. He only wants himself to have a buffer zone. Now, America does have several military bases in Syria. It could be as many as 8 or 10 by where the oil fields are in northeast Syria, and he's probably going to leave America and the oil alone, hoping America just stands down. But, I think we're pretty far away from that right now. HTS has gotten bad public light. It's going to the UN Security Council. There's a lot of outspokenness on social media about this. The head of HTS, Giuliani, I think his name is something like that. Thinking was this Giuliani, if that's his name, I think it is, the head of HTS, was a wanted terrorist by the United States, and I believe he had a $10 million bounty on his head. And when he took power, Americans suspended all that, took it away. So now America put their blessing on a genocidal maniac. It's a problem. A lot of world leaders have recognized this HTS. You see, they don't stand for racial cleansing and genocide. When you start hitting women and children and the elderly, they don't like it. It's a bad image. So the head of HTS is now going to release 9,500. That's the figure I got. ISIS prisoners held in Bashar Assad's jails. Well, he waited a few months before he did this, but I have a feeling he probably treated them rather favorably in jail because he's ISIS and Al Qaeda. Now he's going to release them, he said, and I'm rather certain 90% of them are going to join his ranks as security force or military force. Now, they're not going to be 100%. Some are probably old, injured, busted up, and don't want to, or whatever. I don't know. But I'd say the majority of them will join his security forces, so he'll bolster them up. I expect, I have no factual information on this, that he probably gave them more freedom in the jail to roam around the prisons, better food, maybe cell phones, things like that, and told them, you got to hang on, I can't do this right away, I'll look bad. The big military naval exercise with Iran was nothing. It came and it went. It had a total of 15 ships. It was Russia, China, and Iran. I think it was a 1 day exercise. They hold this every year going back 8 years. It was no big deal. It came and it went. That was it. Let's switch horses to the Trump tariff situation. I know there was a big drop in the stock market yesterday, over $1 trillion. Got wiped out and all this. Okay. There's a lot of well-intended survivalists and preppers and gun people that are saying Trump's tariffs are going to mean you got to pay more. So the tariff war. So if another country like Canada or Mexico puts 25% tariff, if Trump puts 25% tariff on goods coming from, say, Canada or Mexico, you're going to have to pay an extra 25%. This is not true. They do not understand what Trump is doing. They mean well, they're well intended, but they don't understand. An American manufacturer years ago, and I think it's probably still the same, tries to maintain about a 40% margin of profit. So if they sell something for $100, they keep the cost of goods sold down to about $60. Okay. Now some companies can get away with 60, 75% profit margin. So something they sell for $100 costs them 25 or $40 to make. This happens too. Okay. Now China, with very cheap labor, probably likely has a lot of products that are being sold into America at more than a 40% margin, maybe 60%, 70%. I don't know. Maybe less in some cases, maybe 25% in some cases. I don't know. It's going to vary from country to country and company to company, and different products, and so forth. Okay. So the idea is, let's say a company is selling widgets, and that's I have an MBA, and that's business school terminology. A widget is a funny term that means not much. It means something a company sells. Because when you go to business school and you're solving problems, a lot of times you see they give you case method in business school. You study a real company. In the good business school, they have the actual executive officers of the company come in and meet with the class and discuss the problems, and then the class dissects it, makes suggestions, and gives it back to the company. So they usually come twice, maybe a third time if this class has more questions. Um, so when you look at a problem a company is having, you could look at it in terms of financial. So you could analyze the remedy for the company based strictly on financial information and what they should be doing with money. You can analyze the same company, the same problem, and come up with solutions in what they call production management. Go to work on the production line and how they ship goods, store goods, buy raw materials, all of this. You could work on that. And then you could work on it in terms of management. The same problem, the same company, you could attempt a solution based on how they could make improvements in the way they manage the workers. And what you can also do is make suggestions to the company in all three areas. So rather than get hung up on the guys making baby cribs or hangers or shoelaces, you can talk in generalities in terms of a widget. A widget doesn't exist, okay? You know, it's like saying, what's wrong with the car? Oh, the Thurlinger pin is bent. Well, there are no Thurlinger pins. It's just nonsense words, right? Okay, so when you start working with widgets, it could get, you know, all over the place. But the idea that Trump has, which is sound, is that the companies in other countries would reduce their prices to cover the tariff enhancement so that people pay the same thing for the goods. And it hurts their profit margins, not causes you, Mr. and Mrs. America, to spend more money. That's what Trump's trying to do. Okay? It'll be somewhat successful. Give me a second here, I'll be right back. So I want to give Trump credit where credit is due. He's not in lunatic land here trying to make Americans pay 25% more. Now, the backstory to this is if the companies don't reduce their prices and the tariffs then bump the price up 25%, which you would have to pay, what happens is people in America will look for perhaps domestically made goods that come in cheaper than the imported goods. Or another company from the same country that imports goods gets nervous and reduces their price by 25%, and then people will buy that brand. You see, you're dealing with free market economy competition. And if the companies just sit around and do nothing, their sales are going to diminish, and American companies may move in and start making it, or countries that don't have these tariffs on them will, because they reduced the tariffs America has to pay to sell goods in their country, so they don't have any tariffs, or they got a 5% or a 3% or something like that. Well, then they move in. Companies in that country that were not selling in America all of a sudden wake up and say, hey, I could come in 20% or 22% under market price. Let me go do it. And you see, so a lot of people don't understand this, but that's exactly what Trump is trying to do. Now, if you go to tariffs at 50%, which Trump may escalate, now you got some problems because the companies can't drop their price 50% in practically all the cases, or very many of them, I should say. So what happens? Well, now it makes the domestic goods in America more attractive. And then they buy American, and they may be paying a little bit more for the American goods, or maybe not so little than they were with the foreign goods. So that could happen if Trump starts going to 50 and 100% tariffs, which I don't believe he's done yet. So he may not go that high unless he's just out to punish a country and doesn't care. Okay? So that's really what the tariffs are supposed to do. And you're in a wild card environment with tariffs, and you don't know what's going to happen for sure till it happens. But Trump's plan is, rather sound. As I've said many times, Trump understands businesses, and he knows how to, make money and how companies operate and things like that. When it comes to war and international affairs, I don't think Trump is in his own element. And he's making mistakes in this area by, irritating way too many so-called allies at the same time. The European Union, then NATO within the European Union, then Mexico and Canada and China, and on it goes, So it's a lot. It appears he made some sort of a peaceful deal with Modi. So Modi's going to lower tariffs on American goods tremendously, and that will allow America to sell a lot of goods in India, which is a massive country. So they're going to pick up a lot of business that way, where the tariffs are so prohibitive now. America hasn't been selling stuff in India, like the cars. There's about 100% tax in India on American cars, and it can get higher, I guess, on luxury cars and sports cars and stuff. So that'll change. So it'll open up a market, And India sells a lot of stuff to America rather cheaply, and the truth is, India could pick up a lot of the slack that China had that'll be lost, because India has very cheap labor also. So Trump is not, I want to give credit where credit is due. Trump is not being stupid about this, okay? What the problem is, a lot of these preppers and stuff don't quite understand it, okay? And they're nailing, they're making Trump out to be an idiot. And the tariffs are way more complicated. And what they're really designed to do is get the other country to throw the towel in and reduce tariffs on American goods. And then it opens up markets for us. Now, let me show you what else Trump has been doing that these preppers and survivalists and gun people are missing. We're hearing a lot of talk daily about people getting Social Security getting a bump up. And it's going to be, now nobody knows exactly till it actually comes out as a law and Trump signs it, but we're hearing a $200 a month bump on Social Security recipients, which is many tens of millions of people. It'll help the economy. Don't kid yourself. It will help the economy. Okay. way that works is they get a bigger check, so what do? They'll buy more food, maybe a higher grade food. Maybe they'll go out and um, subscribe to more channels on their cable TV or their internet or something like that. They may go out to eat more. They may go to the dry cleaners more. They may buy some books or, clothing or whatever, right? Now, I don't know if he's going to do 200 for every single person or he's going to do it as a percentage. So somebody that was getting 2,700 a month might get 350, and somebody getting 1,000 a month might get 150, or something like that. I don't know. Okay. And they're also heavily talking about a stimulus check, and we're hearing numbers all the way from $2,000 to $5,000 this month in March, and they're not. We don't have a precise number, and we're getting led to believe that this will happen every quarter. Now, what does this do? So let's just take a figure in the middle. Say they give Social Security recipients $3,000, and maybe other people. They give them $3,000 a month, $3,000 4 times a year. Well, that covers the extra costs they may have to pay for consumer goods due to the tariffs, doesn't it? If the tariffs do cause price hikes in consumer goods, which would only be temporary, I think. But see, what I'm telling you, Trump is covering his bases. Now, if Trump could think that way militarily, it would be a nice thing, but he doesn't. Right now, Trump is in the precarious position of the major countries in the world thinking he's all talk and he can't deliver because his government is extremely weak right now, which is true, and so is his military, because he's purging out the Obama-Biden people that got in for 12 years and trying to put his own people in, and that takes months. So Trump's in no good position to go to war with anybody substantial. So to get his street creds, as the rappers would say, his credibility back in the international arena, he has to make somebody an example. And I think those examples are basically 3 possibilities. One is Hamas, and that's not much of an example. So that's really wouldn't count. So he'll let Israel do that, I think. Unless his concerns to make it into a resort are pressing on him heavily, then he may join in. Then comes Yemen, and that is highly probable because Yemen can't do anything to America. Yemen will start attacking American warships in the Persian Gulf, not the Persian Gulf, in the Red Sea area. And they've already done that many times, and they have gotten hits on ships, and that, of course, is going to infuriate Trump. And if he lets the Houthis in Yemen get away with that, it's going to lead to open season on American troops and bases anywhere in the world, and consulates and embassies and everything else. So he has to respond to that. Now, the Houthis gave us 4 days when we cut off the humanitarian aid going into Hamas, the people in Gaza. And this is the last of the 4 days, is my understanding. Well, the 4th day is over today. I think today is the last day. And then they're going to start attacking shipping and lob missiles over at Israel again. And I think Trump is going to have to respond to that. He can also hit Iran, and he may very well plan on doing that because Iran is snubbing him. They won't even negotiate with him. They think he's so weak and impotent they won't even sit down and talk to him. So, war is on the horizon. No doubt about it. What is Trump doing with Hamas? Well, it appears he's letting Israel handle it. He tried negotiating directly with them. It was a joke. They start these negotiations and say it looks encouraging. We've seen them do that, 25 times? Hamas keeps saying the same thing. Our demands don't change. We want a phase 2, not an extension of phase 1. We want Israel to completely leave Gaza. Then we'll negotiate giving them some hostages for terrorist prisoner release out of the Israeli jails after they leave Gaza completely. And we want to have an airport. We want to stay militarized with weapons. We want to be able to smuggle weapons in from the Rafah crossing from Egypt and all of this stuff. They probably want to build piers for commercial ships to offload weapons there. And we would probably have 2 or 3 months until they rebuilt enough to throw thousands of missiles at Israel. Now, the people that want the hostages back are operating with blinders on, but the blinders are not only on the side, they're in the front. And all they know is, I want my friends and family back, and we'll worry about everything later. And, you know, that's how people in that position are likely to think. If they're not believers and stuff, they'll go that route. So Netanyahu has political problems and wants to save the day for these people and get the hostages back. And Hamas has no intention of ever giving all the hostages back, all the living ones, because they want to keep Israel out of their hair for as long as they feel is needed to build up a good war machine and wipe us out the next time. That's all this is. Nothing else. And some of the Israeli public don't care. They just want the hostages back. And then we'll deal with it later. That's how they're taking it. So the problems are rather pronounced. So that's why Trump went in to negotiate, in my opinion, to see if he could get somewhere without the political restraints bearing down on. Hey, shut up! Bearing down on that. They're not moving. They're not flexing. It's stupid, and they're just continuing the negotiations. And Netanyahu's buying some time for something. Hang on a second. Hey, shut up out there! She's walking like crazy. an invasion of our land, or potentially so, so she's warning them. She can't sit there and bark all day. And she stopped. So Trump is being told by Hamas, your threats are meaningless. Iran is telling Trump, we're not going to negotiate with you with your bully attitude threatening us. Okay? Iran gave them a final warning. Said, if you or Israel attack us, we're going to attack every one of your bases in the Middle East. Syria and HTS is certainly not afraid of Trump massacring civilians like this when America withdrew their, $10 million reward for this guy, and they kind of cleaned him up and made him presentable with a suit and a trimmed beard and a haircut. So you see, Trump has a massive credibility problem now in the world. And he's got to do something, or they're just going to keep laughing at him, and it's going to get worse and worse. Okay? Trump's not going to invade Canada. I don't see that. Several people, more than one person, has brought that up, I should say. I don't believe it. Yes, the attack on the daughter of Balbon America comes through the north, which would be Canada. A likely scenario is they come from Russia, which could be North Korea, China, and Russia, into Alaska. They drop down through Canada, and maybe they attack Canada, or maybe Canada invites them to get protection from Trump and the tariffs and stuff like that, and then they attack America. But I do not believe Canada attacks America. It could be, but maybe they join Russia and China. I don't think so, but I don't know so either. So at this point, I wouldn't get very concerned about that. I don't really see any logic in Trump attacking Canada. He can get what he wants diplomatically. Okay. So I would say that, you got to give Trump a chance with his tariffs to see how it plays out, although there's not a lot of prophetic time left, so I don't think you'll ever see much of anything come about with that. His plan is, I think, again, sound. Yesterday or last night, actually not that many hours ago, Ukraine did a massive drone strike on Moscow, hitting lots of buildings. There were videos people in Moscow were filming with numerous explosions going off. I believe civilian buildings were hit as well. So what does this tell you? Okay, number one, it tells you the Russian threat is way overinflated. Russia can't even stop Ukraine from hitting them with drones. Ukraine destroyed, I would say, at least 25% of the Russian oil refineries in Russia already. And he keeps going for more. He might even be at 30%. Putin does not have good weapons. He can't hold up against Ukraine. How would he do against America and NATO combined, with the UK also? and France and Germany. He'd do pretty bad, wouldn't he? We were taught to fear Russia all these years, but look how poorly he performs with Ukraine. He's not winning against Ukraine. I've told you this perhaps 10 times. They're destroying each other, is all that's happening. They're just destroying each other. Nothing more. That's it. Nothing else. So maybe Putin's going to cave in and give more concessions to Zelensky before he loses more oil refineries and more of Moscow gets blown up, or maybe he'll just bear down harder on Zelensky. I don't think these stories of Russia using restraint and all this stuff are that valid. I think Russia is a lot weaker than they've been telling us for 40, 50 years. That's what I think. So what I see is Zelensky hits Russia, then Putin hits Ukraine, and we go back and forth, shot for shot. And that is, if anything, it's a sign that they're probably equally matched. And that's not saying a lot for Russia. There are videos where some HTS terrorists, jihadists are saying, we're going to kill all the Alawites, God commands it. That's 2.4 million. They're at 10,000 now. The world might let this go on. Don't kid yourself. Israel has to look at, if they intervene, what happens? How can we intervene? 25 jets go up in the air and we start bombing HTS troops, buildings with them in it, stuff like that, right? Drone targeted assassination on their leaders and things like that, and disable them. Well, the question Israel has then is who takes over? Turkey? That's not such a good idea. The UN peacekeepers? That ain't gonna happen. America? Trump wants no part of that whatsoever. So does Israel take it over? Could be. It's a possibility, or we take a bigger buffer zone and start getting more and more territory. We expanded our military bases in Lebanon near the border from 5 to I think 7 now, but we added 7 more. We increased the number of bases we have there. The Lebanese government is getting more and more frustrated with us, but they won't do their job in terms of keeping Hezbollah out and demilitarizing Hezbollah. They're not even lifting a finger to demilitarize Hezbollah in Lebanon. So we're going to keep doing it. And apparently we're demilitarizing on a sophisticated level HTS in Syria. We're not letting them have any serious weapons, including tanks, which is not really a serious weapon. And they are saying they're coming for the Christians. What is churchianity doing? Are you hearing the churches sit there and tell the people they got to write their congressmen that we're going to have vigils? We're going to put the vigils on social media, get them on TV. I don't hear any of that. There's a few social media people that are perturbed about this and publicizing it, which is what I'm doing, but it's precious few. I'm not so sure the world is going to do anything about HTS killing the people, but um, we'll have to see. The Pope may start raising a stink about this. I don't know, but he's pretty much almost dead, so they don't really have a functional Pope right now. I don't think any of the Muslim states near Syria, like Jordan or Egypt or anything like that, are going to say, we'll take the Alawites and the Christians in. It's not happening. I don't believe. If we said, okay, let's throw the Gazans out and put the Alawites into Gaza, then first of all, it's not going to happen. Prophecy doesn't indicate that, and it would take too much time. But we would just be trading problems, you know. Instead of having a terrorist in a green uniform, you have a terrorist in a blue uniform. That's all. So this HTS guy, Giuliani, whatever the heck his name is not interested in doing much to stop it. He's very interested in concealing it so it doesn't get all out in the news like it has been. But in terms of ending it, he's not taking any noticeable measures whatsoever to end it. Now, these so-called Christians in Syria are Christianity. You have to understand that. December 25th Messiah people with the other gospel and all that, the other Jesus, it's not the legit thing. So it doesn't surprise me that this is going on. They would love to get the Druze, these HCS in Syria, because the Druze is an ongoing threat to them also, but they might try to reel the Druze in, Druze, by giving them nice private homes. So that's really what's going on in Syria. And it's likely going to increase. And I am not aware how they're going to shut it down. I think they're just going to get it put under wraps, best case. but we got to watch and see. Remember, Damascus shall be a ruinous heap, and the HTS are heavily in Damascus. And if fighting breaks out, they'll try to hold Damascus, which is the capital of Syria, and that could cause Damascus to look like Gaza. Israel could even do that. So we're watching. Let me check social media for what's going on now, because this stuff is so fluid, it's changing by the hour. Now I'm picking up that reports are coming in that the combined dead between Christians killed in northwestern Syria, that's by the Mediterranean, and the Alawites together is as high as 7,000. Well, I was hearing higher figures, but I think it's mostly Alawites, not that many Christians have been dead. They have gotten killed, they've gotten thrown out of their houses and had their goods taken away. The American Wickoff, Marco Rubio, and I think Trump are all saying the same thing about Hamas. Whatever comes about with this thing with Hamas, it has to be Hamas doesn't stay in Syria. And Hamas is perfectly happy to go out of Syria in a coffin. That's the problem. And they'll kill the terrorists. And Trump and Netanyahu are scared about getting the terrorists killed on their watch. Okay. Checking the news here to see what else we got. There's a NATO summit in Saudi Arabia, and they didn't invite Trump. I don't know how that'll play out. It's more of a political posturing than anything that serious, but it could be serious. I don't know. Not that serious. Checking the news, the social media. I'm not hearing a whole lot about attacking Iran, but if Trump and Netanyahu were bearing down to attack Iran, why would they go public with it, right? Why warn them? I don't see it. So that's what I got for today. And Moshe, please pray for me and my wife for peace, safety, protection, joy, healing. Pray for our animals and pets that are all rescues. Those peace of Yerushalayim, and I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out.